Today is March the 9th. What is God's voice like? Let's find out together as we study Psalm 29 and 30 and Proverbs 7. In Psalm 29 and 30, as David speaks to Israel, he has a repetition, especially in Psalm 29, that it's pretty amazing. He starts out saying, honor the Lord, you heavenly beings. Honor the Lord for his glory and his strength. Honor the Lord for the glory of his name, and worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. Then he starts the repetition. The voice of the Lord echoes above the sea. Verse 4, the voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is majestic. The voice of the Lord splits the mighty cedars. Verse 7, the voice of the Lord strikes with bolts of lightning. The voice of the Lord makes the barren wilderness quake. The Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord twists mighty oaks and strips the forest bare. In his temple, everyone shouts, glory. Now, David talks about God's voice. The voice of God is not a very common repetition in Scripture. We do, however, see it quite a few times. In Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 25, and again in 18:16, the people say, we don't want to hear God's voice. We'll die if we hear God's voice. They look to Moses and they say, you go talk to him and tell us what he says. Stephen picks up on that in Acts chapter 7. Stephen's speech just before he is stoned. Acts 7, verse 31. When Moses saw it, he was amazed at the sight. He went to take a closer look, and the voice of the Lord called out to him. The voice of the Lord spoke to Moses, just as we see in Deuteronomy 5:25. Isaiah heard the voice of the Lord in Isaiah 6:8. The voice of the Lord said, who will go for us? Who shall I send? Isaiah said, send me. I'm here. I'm available. Later, Isaiah 33:31, the voice of the Lord shatters Assyria. Then in Isaiah 66:6, the voice of the Lord brings vengeance on Israel's enemies. Finally, in Micah 6:9, God's voice calls out destruction, and Israel's enemies are destroyed. God's voice throughout Scripture is equated with thunder. Even in the New Testament, when God spoke, some of those who were standing around simply heard thunder. God's voice to those who don't know him well is overpowering. But God's voice to those who know him, like Moses, speaks words of wisdom. Now, following up on that, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 7, I ask you to read. It's, again, Solomon saying to his sons, make a friend of wisdom, listen to wisdom, but don't listen to the promiscuous woman. And he tells here the story of a woman who sees a young man, and she approaches him, and she tries to seduce him. She speaks softly with sweet words. She speaks with words of temptations. So what is God's voice like? To those who don't know him, it speaks in an overpowering way. God shouts in a megaphone. To those who don't know him. To those who do know him, it's not a soft, sweet, seductive type of a voice, but it's a voice calm, confident, assured. It's a voice that they hear and follow. Listen for God's voice today as you go to him in prayer. Please like, follow, and subscribe to this devotional on whatever platform you use to listen to it. Tomorrow, we'll ask the question, how important is tradition?